G'day everyone, and welcome to thepositivelearner.com. I'm Stephen West, founder, and I am absolutely delighted you've joined us today for what I think is one of the most important conversations we can have in our schools and homes right now. One of the themes behind our website creation was the notion of being kind and caring to animals. In fact, in the About section, you have probably read about Millie's story. She isn't just a cat. In fact, she's a feline friend and member of the West family with a passport to over 5 countries. This free presentation is so important, we want you to share it among friends, colleagues, and students. The way we think about our animal friends needs to change for the better. Hence, we're going to explore something that might surprise you: the importance of kindness to animals and what history can teach us about compassion, empathy, and building a better future. This isn't just about being nice to pets, it's about understanding how the way we treat animals reflects who we are as human beings, and how teaching kindness to animals can actually transform our schools, our communities, and our world. So, let's embark on this journey together, a journey through history, compassion, and action.
Thank you, Stephen. That was an inspiring introduction. So why are we here today? What does kindness to animals really mean, and why should it matter to us? Well, kindness to animals means recognizing their inherent value, understanding that animals aren't just objects or resources for us to use. It means treating them with empathy, respect, and care, ensuring they're free from exploitation and suffering. Now, we want you to think about 3 key ideas. First, kindness to animals is a fundamental aspect of a just and humane society. You can't claim to be building a fair, ethical community if you're ignoring or mistreating the creatures who share our world. Second, there's a mutual benefit here. When we treat animals with kindness, it doesn't just help them. It enriches our own lives and protects their welfare at the same time. Research shows that compassion toward animals actually makes us healthier, happier, and more empathetic people. And third, by fostering this compassion, we're creating a more caring planet for all beings, human and non-human alike. Here's a question we'd like you to sit with. How can we truly claim to be humane if we neglect the well-being of the creatures with whom we share our planet? That's what we're here to explore today.
We're going to start by taking a look into the past, examining some quite disturbing examples of historical animal abuse, particularly in warfare. I know this might be uncomfortable, but it's important to understand our history if we want to do better in the future. Then we'll shift to the modern reality, looking at contemporary challenges and ongoing exploitation of animals that still happens today. From there, we'll explore something much more hopeful: the ripple effect of kindness. We'll see how compassion toward animals creates benefits not just for animals themselves, but for society and for each of us individually. Finally, we'll look at the path forward, practical education strategies and actionable steps that students, teachers, and families can take right now to make a difference. This presentation explores the historical context of animal treatment, highlights ongoing challenges, and advocates for a future built on compassion and ethical responsibility toward all living beings. It's ambitious, we know, but it's also incredibly important. Let's begin with something that might be difficult to hear, but it's essential for understanding why kindness to animals matters so much. To truly grasp the importance of kindness to animals, we must confront humanity's historical relationship with them, particularly how animals have been exploited and weaponized in conflict. Throughout history, animals have been actively used as weapons in warfare. This reveals a disturbing pattern of exploitation that we need to acknowledge and learn from. Now, we want to be clear. Examining how animals have been instrumentalized in conflict provides insight into our historical relationship with them. It shows us patterns of thinking that treated animals as mere tools, as objects to be used and discarded. This section explores historical instances of animal exploitation, revealing patterns that demand our reflection. Some of these examples might shock you, and that's okay. Sometimes we need to be shocked into understanding why change is so necessary. Let's go right back to ancient times, because the exploitation of animals for military purposes is definitely not a new phenomenon. Let me tell you about fire pigs. Yes, you heard that right. During the siege of Megara in 266 BC, a military leader named Antigonus II used a horrifying tactic. Pigs were doused in combustible materials, set alight, and then driven toward enemy war elephants. The ancient writer Pliny the Elder noted that elephants are scared by the smallest squeal of the hog. The terrified elephants would bolt in panic, often trampling their own soldiers in the chaos. Imagine the suffering of those poor pigs, burned alive and driven toward their deaths. And then there were scorpion bombs, used by defenders of the city of Hatra against Roman legions in the 2nd century AD. Terracotta pots were filled with live scorpions, and possibly assassin bugs as well, and then hurled down on Roman soldiers trying to scale the walls. The terror and pain caused by these creatures contributed to a rare Roman retreat. These are just reminders that the exploitation of animals for military gain is not a new phenomenon. Humans have been using animals as weapons for thousands of years, treating them as expendable tools rather than sentient beings capable of suffering. Now let's look at how ancient military leaders understood the psychological impact of animals in warfare and used that knowledge in really disturbing ways. Hannibal, yes, the famous Carthaginian general, used what's been called snake artillery. During a naval battle against Pergamum, he ordered his men to fill earthen pots with venomous snakes and catapult them onto enemy ships. The strategic effect was exactly what he intended. It created absolute chaos and panic among the crew, exploiting the widespread fear of snakes. Then there's the Battle of Pelusium in 525 BCE. The Persian king Cambyses II exploited Egyptian reverence for cats during his invasion. He knew that cats were sacred animals in Egyptian culture, so he positioned cats in front of his forces. The Egyptian archers hesitated to shoot, afraid of harming the sacred animals, which allowed the Persian forces to advance virtually unopposed. It was psychological warfare that exploited cultural reverence, but it also exploited innocent animals, using them as living shields. These examples demonstrate how ancient military leaders understood the psychological impact of animals in warfare. They were clever, certainly, but what they did was also deeply cruel and exploitative. And to fast forward now to more recent history, the world wars of the 20th century. Despite all the technological advancements of the modern era, animals proved absolutely indispensable in the First World War. Over 16 million animals served in WWI alone. That's a staggering number. Their roles were diverse and critical. As transporters, horses, donkeys, mules, and camels carried food, water, ammunition, and medical supplies across treacherous terrain. As communicators, dogs and pigeons delivered messages across dangerous territories where human messengers couldn't safely travel. And as protectors, cats and dogs hunted rats in the disease-ridden trenches, helping to control the spread of illness. As the slide says, their roles were diverse and critical, transporting supplies, communicating messages, detecting gas, and controlling pests in the trenches. These animals didn't volunteer. They didn't understand the causes of the war. They were simply put into service by humans, and millions of them died in absolutely horrific conditions. Next, we move on to something that happened within living memory: the Vietnam War and the treatment of military working dogs. Approximately 4,000 military working dogs served in Vietnam. These dogs, primarily German Shepherds and Labrador Retrievers, saved over 10,000 American lives through their work detecting explosives, finding hidden enemies, and protecting troops. But here's what's truly heartbreaking. After the war, these dogs were classified as equipment. Not as the loyal companions who had saved thousands of lives, as equipment. Only about 200 dogs made it home to retire. Only 200 out of 4,000. The rest were left behind, transferred to the South Vietnamese army, systematically euthanized, or simply abandoned when the war ended. Many handlers were completely unaware for years that their canine partners, their friends, never returned home. Think about that for a moment. These dogs had saved thousands of human lives, had worked alongside soldiers in the most dangerous conditions imaginable, and they were simply discarded like broken machinery when they were no longer needed. It's one of the most shameful chapters in the history of animal use in warfare, and it's a powerful reminder of what happens when we treat animals as mere tools, rather than as sentient beings deserving of care and respect. Sometimes animal exploitation happens with what seems like good intentions, but the results are still problematic. Let me tell you about Operation Cat Drop in 1960 Borneo. In 1960 Borneo, there was a malaria eradication campaign using DDT, which seemed like a good idea at the time, but the DDT killed wasps, which were the natural predators of caterpillars. Without the wasps, the caterpillar population exploded, and they proceeded to destroy thatched roofs throughout the region. Meanwhile, local cats died from DDT exposure, which caused the rat population to surge. More rats meant more disease. So, what did authorities do? The UK Royal Air Force actually parachuted cats into British Sarawak. Yes, cats with tiny parachutes, to address the rat problem. Now, the operation makes for a quirky story, and some people find it amusing. But here's the serious point. The cats were treated as expendable tools to rectify human-created problems. We caused an ecological disaster, and then we used animals to try to fix it, without really considering their welfare or the broader consequences. As the slide says, this operation exemplifies how human interventions, even with good intentions, can lead to further animal suffering and instrumentalization. What can we learn from all these historical examples? Well, the historical examples reveal a consistent pattern of animals being exploited as tools of war, terror, and convenience, spanning from ancient battlefields right up to modern ecological interventions. First, there's the issue of instrumentalization. Animals have been consistently treated as tools rather than as sentient beings with intrinsic value. They've been seen as means to our ends, not as creatures deserving of consideration in their own right. Second, there's a clear historical pattern. The exploitation of animals for human benefit spans millennia, appearing across different cultures and contexts. This isn't just one culture or one time period, it's a widespread human problem. And third, we need an urgent shift in perspective. We need a fundamental change in how we view and treat animals, moving toward a future where kindness and compassion guide our interactions with them. There's a famous quote from Mahatma Gandhi that appears on this slide. The greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way its animals are treated. We think that's absolutely true. How we treat the most vulnerable among us, including animals, says everything about who we are as a society. Right? Now that we've examined the difficult history of animal exploitation, let's explore something much more hopeful. How kindness to animals creates a profound ripple effect, benefiting not just animals, but our society and ourselves. We're going to look at 4 key areas. First, breaking cycles of violence, understanding the link between animal cruelty and human violence. Second, the psychological benefits of kind interactions with animals and how they improve human mental health. Third, building empathy, how developing compassion through our relationships with animals makes us more compassionate people overall. And fourth, environmental health, how animal welfare contributes to ecosystem stability. This is where things get really interesting, because the research shows that kindness to animals isn't just good for the animals, it's good for everyone. This is one of the most important connections we can understand, and it's backed by solid research. There's a well-documented link between childhood cruelty to animals and later criminality, violence, and antisocial behavior. When children hurt animals without remorse, it's often a warning sign of deeper problems. And here's something even more concerning. When animals are abused in a home, there's a strong likelihood that people within that same home are also experiencing abuse, whether that's child abuse, spousal abuse, or elder abuse. Animal cruelty and human violence often go hand in hand. The slide shows this as the cycle of violence. Animal abuse leads to household violence, which leads to broader human violence in the community. But here's the hopeful part. We can break this cycle. Humane education offers a powerful intervention, capable of breaking the cycle of violence and replacing it with one of compassion, empathy, and personal responsibility. When we teach children to be kind to animals, we're not just teaching them about animals, we're teaching them foundational skills for being kind, empathetic human beings. We're literally fostering safer communities for all. Let's dive into the scientifically documented psychological benefits of compassionate animal interactions. This research is absolutely fascinating. First, there's reduced stress and anxiety. Pet ownership has been shown to lower cortisol levels. That's your stress hormone, which promotes relaxation. Simply patting a dog or cat can physically calm your body. Second, lower blood pressure. Multiple studies show that interacting with animals decreases blood pressure. This isn't just a feel-good thing. It's measurable physical health improvement. Third, decreased loneliness. Animals provide companionship and a sense of purpose, which helps combat isolation. This is particularly important for elderly people or those living alone, but it's beneficial for everyone. And fourth, increased social support. Pets provide unconditional support that enhances overall well-being. They accept us as we are, without judgment. As the slide says, the presence of animals increases feelings of happiness and contentment. This isn't just anecdotal. It's backed by rigorous scientific research. Kindness to animals literally makes us healthier and happier. This is the end of part 1. Please make sure to join us for part 2 as we explore environmental health and animal welfare. Thank you.